The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello there, and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbit, and this week I'm so happy to be joined by a man who's taking time away from watching episodes of Square Pegs. His name is Jeff Robbins.
So what's with the outfit? I mean,
it's Christmas season.
But this is not your last show before Christmas.
Well, I'm not in the full suit, am I?
You're gonna get
This
the full.
This is just the precursor, just loungewear for Santa Claus.
Like an evolution.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, just wait till what happens next week.
Can't wait.
Tune in.
Wow.
Welcome back to the show.
Thanks. It's been a while.
It has been.
I was getting a little worried why you hadn't asked me back.
That was on purpose.
Yeah, I figured.
You offended some viewers last time.
Well,
But we
I'm
brought you
sorry.
back because
Yeah.
nobody's actually watching, so why not bring you back?
That cough medicine really did its thing. on me.
Very good. Let's talk about a bunch of movies. We have 4 movies to discuss this week. We have 1 on the marquee, and that's where I'm going to get us started with the week's only movie. Get your hand out of here. The week's only movie on the marquee. It is a film called Violent Night from director Tommy Wirkola. Stars David Harbour as Santa Claus. It's Christmas Eve, and Santa Claus is on the job, drunkenly, begrudgingly. He's delusioned with his job after all these years of being Santa, but he's out there doing his thing in what I would say is a very beautiful Santa suit. He's a Santa who pairs cookies with brandy, if that helps you figure out what his deal is. Meanwhile, we meet the Lightstone family, an incredibly wealthy and influential family led by the family matriarch Gertrude, lovingly played by Beverly D'Angelo. She wields her influence and power over everyone, particularly her own cowering family who have gathered together for Christmas Eve at the family compound. Oldest son Jason is there with his recently divorced wife Linda and their daughter Trudy. But what none of them know is that there is a group of mercenary terrorists who are planning on crashing their Christmas party, led by a man who is obsessed with Christmas and has dubbed himself Scrooge, played by John Leguizamo. All of his underlings all have festive names they go by. And so, much like one of the greatest Christmas films ever, we have terrorists holding people hostage, and there's only one man who can save them. And this time it's not John McClane, it's Santa Claus himself, who at first is kind of reluctant to get involved, looking to just kind of escape from it all himself. But when young Trudy gets in contact with him and makes a Christmas wish, it's time for Santa to unleash some season's beatings. And we get glimpses of who Santa Claus was before the red suit, a warrior who loved to kill people with his hammer. And the film then turns into a series of increasingly violent fight scenes as he takes out wave after wave of bad guy, using all the trappings of Christmas at his disposal. And I found the fight choreography really fun in this, really creative. Each fight had a different look to it. It wasn't the same fight over and over. And Santa, I like when the protagonist kind of gets damage along the way. He's not just invincible. Santa's getting beat up pretty good. Lots of homages to Christmas classics like Die Hard and Home Alone in this movie. And I enjoyed this. I enjoyed David Harbour as Santa Claus quite a bit. He is an enjoyable man to me. What do you think about Violent Night? Is this up your alley?
I disagree with a couple things that you had to say, and I'll tell you what they were. You said you enjoyed the fight choreography because it wasn't the same fight. I thought it was the same fight.
Really?
I mean, most of the people he kills with that big hammer of his.
Oh, he kills people with candy canes. He kills people with the star on the top of the tree.
Mostly he uses that hammer.
He kills people with snow blowers.
Mostly he uses
Christmas
that hammer.
lights.
Yeah, it was mostly the hammer.
I just named like 7 other things he used.
It was mostly the hammer.
All right. Well, I love Santa Claus swinging a sledgehammer.
And you also said that he was a reluctant hero.
Yeah.
I thought he took to the killings very quickly.
He was escaping. He couldn't get out of there fast enough because his reindeer left him.
As soon as he was like, well, my reindeer have left, I guess I'll just start killing people. It was a quick turnaround, I thought.
No,
I would have liked to have seen him more because
he was hiding from them when they first discovered. He was hiding twice when he got caught. Both times he was trying to get out of there. It wasn't until Trudy.
That was like 2 minutes.
It wasn't until Trudy kind of inspired him that he's like, all right, time to.
That was another thing.
down.
I found all the actors in this movie, with possible exception. I like David Harbour.
Yeah.
I liked him, and I like John Leguizamo.
Really?
Fine.
See, I hated John Leguizamo in this movie.
I
thought he was
like,
awful in
just
this.
like a cardboard villain, just like no.
He wasn't
no
menacing enough. He wasn't cool enough. He's trying to play himself as he's like super cool. Like, you're not. You're lame. This should have been somebody like Michael Shannon who's menacing. Like, you put him up against a Hans Gruber. That's the comparison they want as Die Hard. Oh, he's super lame compared to some of the other great.
You just always box him into that House of Buggin' persona.
I like him in The Pest.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the character. I mean, the whole family was annoying. And I
Unlikable.
guess that was maybe part of.
Yeah.
I think that was on purpose. But you didn't care if that family got saved or not. I didn't care.
I love Beverly D'Angelo, and I wanted her to be saved.
See, I was watching this movie the whole time, and I thought, "Oh my God, look at Meg Ryan. She looks so." But it wasn't Meg Ryan. It was
stuff done.
It was Beverly D'Angelo.
Yes, it
but
was.
I honestly,
Christmas Vacation Zone.
I honestly thought throughout the whole film that it was Meg Ryan.
Okay, I can see that.
See, the tone of the Santa never seemed right to me. Because at the beginning of the movie, as you hinted at, he's at a bar, he's drunk, he's depressed, he's
Urinating off the sleigh over the city.
He's throwing up on people. He's yelling at his reindeer.
He's bad Santa.
Yeah, exactly. I wrote that in my notes.
Oh,
he's
very
bad
good.
Santa. Yeah, thank you. And then, in my estimation, he gets to the house. You're right. He tries to get out. He's like, "Oh, let's get FFF," and then he's like, well, okay, I'm stuck here. I guess I'll just start killing people. To me, he took to it too readily. Now, I know he was a Viking warrior.
That he was.
But wouldn't that have been like 1,200 years ago? He mentioned at some point that he was like 1,500 years.
Yeah.
To me, he just took to that a little bit too easily. And then
he did say, though, that he misses those days.
Yeah. And then it was just, was just one fight scene after another.
I love when I get to see people. I've never seen anyone killed with a candy cane before. I like seeing that.
And the star through the head?
Yeah, that's John Wick stuff. He showed me how to kill a guy with a library book.
What makes these people terrorists and not just crooks? You call them terrorists.
Yeah.
I think they're just crooks.
Are they?
It's a home invasion. Why are they terrorists?
Because there's a team of like 70 of them. And they're in there trying. They got a guy who's a safe cracker, and they got various mercenaries. They're mercenaries.
And the whole thing, every time, well, not every time, but most of the fight scenes, there's like a holly jolly.
The music,
and it's like I've seen that before.
Yeah,
the juxtaposition.
It's standard.
Yeah. And then I'm not going to give away the ending.
Please don't.
But there is a very sappy, unironically sappy ending, and it's like this movie did not earn that.
I agree with that. It is a very unearned ending.
It's like an hour of blood, and then isn't this a lovely thing?
I will agree with that. There was a kind of a groaner.
Yeah, I thought it was a groaner.
To end it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
at least I made that point.
Tommy Ricola as a director, very interesting. He's made a couple of movies that you may or may not have seen. He made the Dead Snow films, horror flicks starring zombie Nazis.
Okay.
They are also set during the Christmas season.
I missed those.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I've seen of his.
There's a couple of them. Didn't he make the Trip?
He might have. I don't know. Okay. That's all I know.
All right.
Violent Night. Let's move ahead. Violent Night. What did you end up giving this film?
I believe, as you'll soon see on the screen, I gave Violent Night 2 stars.
Ooh, I liked it much more than that. I believe I liked it in the 3.5 star range. I liked a lot other than John Leguizamo, who was awful, but
well, he wasn't great, but I didn't dislike.
It's a Christmas classic.
I hated the main guy.
Jason, yeah, he was no good.
He's terrible.
He's awful. Yep, I agree. All right, let's move on to our streaming spotlight, the first of 3 this week. I turn to you, sir, to talk about a streaming spotlight that we watched. What do you have?
Well, I think, if I have the order correct, over there on the Disney Plus, we've got a documentary called Mickey, the Story of a Mouse. It's directed by Jeff Malmberg, thank you, and had its Disney Plus debut, Jamison, on the same day of Mickey Mouse's 94th birthday.
Happy
Did you
birthday.
know that? The thread of the documentary is supposedly a new short being produced over there at Disney called Mickey in a Minute that shows in 60 seconds all the different iterations of the iconic character. Along the way in this documentary, we meet many people, the animators working on the short, the voice of Mickey Mouse, Disney employees and artists, and art historians who talk about the history and significance of Mickey Mouse throughout the years. It's the kind of documentary that's a little bit all over the place. Does it want to be a history of Mickey? Does it want to be a history of Walt Disney the man? History of Walt Disney the company? Does it want to be a fluff promotional piece? Or does it want to explore some darker corners of Mickey's past, like when he wore blackface or the times when he was a little bit too sexually aggressive towards Minnie. But there is a lot to like here. The movie certainly does not overstay its 90-minute welcome. The animators, particularly Eric Goldberg, are really interesting. They understand and relish their role at the world's most iconic animation studio, drawing the world's most iconic mouse. I also found the narrative between that Donald Duck and Goofy were created because Mickey was sort of boring and wholesome pretty remarkable.
Yeah. I did not. I never
I never
that or
made
thought of
that.
that.
Yeah, I never made the connection between those.
Now
two.
we've made him a straight man. We got
Yeah, he's a straight man. Yeah, we're gonna make comic shorts. We gotta have some funny characters.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, the at the end they sort of talked about how Mickey had kind of become a corporate symbol, other than a representation of anything creative. I found that pretty interesting as well. But none of these threads, Mr. Rabbit, were explored to the extent that I wanted them to be. Ultimately, I recommend Mickey, the Story of a Mouse, but for anyone who really wants to delve more into the history of Walt Disney, I would recommend a PBS American Experience documentary that came out in 2015 and I believe is available on the DVD.
All right. I was surprised by kind of how straightforward this was. Like, if you know enough about Disney, the history of Disney, you know a good chunk of this stuff.
Yeah.
And the director, Jeff Malmberg, he's the director of my favorite documentary ever.
Ever?
Marwin Call is my favorite documentary,
Wow.
and it's amazing. And this felt like it was just kind of, I don't know, he kind of phoned in part of it. Like, because he normally would chase those threads.
Yeah.
He'd be like, here's something interesting, let's dig into it. And it was just like, let's mention it, but then we'll move on. We'll
Right.
mention this.
A lot of things were mentioned.
And so
and
it was
moved
kind
on.
of like a soup to nuts documentary of, oh, we'll give you a little piece of the entire history of it. We're not gonna, it's gonna be real thin though.
Correct.
But I like the idea of, my favorite part was like seeing the animators,
Yeah.
talking to them, and them explaining the subtle differences of Mickey through the ages and how various eras and animators changed his look. And watching them do the work of like flipping back and forth, and
Yeah, it was really
we see how that pays off at the end.
And
I enjoyed that.
they mentioned at one point back in Disney's heyday there would have been like 100 hand-drawn animators,
Yeah.
and now there's 3.
It's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're there.
wow, it's pretty
There they
amazing.
are.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting too to show like how Walt reinvented Mickey when he started to get stale. Like, he's getting stale. Well, he's kind of becoming almost a background character to
Yeah.
everyone else. So let's create Fantasia, make him
Right.
the star.
Yep.
Mickey's getting stale again. He's becoming just the boring guy. So let's do Mickey's Christmas Carol and reinvent him again. And that's my favorite Mickey Mouse iteration, is that Christmas Carol. And I thought that
And-
was kind of
and-
cool.
Television's coming along. Let's not fight it. Let's embrace it. And they went into the Mickey Mouse Club and all that whole thing. I thought that
Yeah.
was a lot of
Yeah.
interesting things, but like you say, fairly superficial.
Yeah, I would agree. How many pairs of Mickey Mouse ears do you own?
Oh, I don't think I have any.
Really?
I wouldn't.
A man who has been to Disney more times than I've seen my...
I don't wear that kind of stuff.
Really?
I take pride in my look, and I don't want to look like a buffoon.
What's your favorite Mickey Mouse starring vehicle?
My favorite Mickey Mouse starring vehicle?
Yeah.
I would probably say Fantasia.
Yeah, that's pretty great. I didn't like it as a kid, and now I love it.
Well, because it's
Didn't understand it.
It's a lot of classical music.
It wasn't
a lot of It's,
fun
It's not a
Mickey.
narrative. It's not a It's not a funny cartoon.
Yeah, yeah.
It's no Footloose and what is it? Fun and fancy free? Is that what it
Footloose
is?
and Fancy? I don't know.
I was surprised they didn't go into the new ride at the Disney World there, the Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which is sort of a recognition of the fact that we have this huge theme park and there's nothing starring our most iconic characters. So I thought that was
Interesting.
I'm surprised they left that out.
Scandalous.
Well, I wouldn't say scandalous.
Okay, I don't
just
know.
a surprising omission.
It is surprising. All right, sir. You gave this a tepid recommend. What does that kind of recommendation give it? Well, you recommended a different movie over it. What did you end up giving Mickey, the Story of a Mouse?
I believe I gave it a very solid 3 stars.
All right. And that's exactly what I gave it as well. I think it's fun. It's enjoyable. It might give you things to actually go and look up if you don't know about it.
Yeah,
Say,
exactly.
I want to dig into that a little more on myself. Give you a little homework. But
Exactly.
yeah, it's
I would
fun
agree
enough.
with that, 100%.
There's some really interesting parts in here. So,
Okay.
Let's move on to our next documentary. We're documentary heavy this week. We have one. Where was this playing on? Was this
This was your Netflix.
Netflix,
Yeah.
of course.
Brand new
for
company.
A documentary called Senior, from director Chris Smith, who is another one of our great documentary filmmakers. He brought us American Movie, another one of my favorite documentaries.
I've seen that.
Yeah, and Tiger King. Seen that?
Have not seen that.
Oh, it's a good one. This is a doc following Robert Downey Jr. as he reconnects with and explores the legacy of his father, Robert Downey Sr., thus the title. He was the visionary filmmaker of the 1960s and 1970s who truly made films and lived life as eccentrically as he wanted to. Part of this film is Robert Downey Jr. learning about his father, learning who he is, who he was. So many times in this film, you see Robert Downey Jr. saying, I had no idea about that. He's learning about his dad late in his father's life.
Right.
And part of his process to connect with his father is to make this documentary and to make a film almost within the film following his father, them collaborating together. He's very hands-on. Often it's Robert Downey Jr. just sitting with the camera talking to his father, sometimes directing him in this film within a film that they're working on. And we see that art has always been the language that these men trade in. Jr. admits that his father was always more obsessed with films and chasing his muse than his family necessarily or anything else in life. And a lot of memories surrounding going to see weird, avant-garde, oftentimes inappropriate films together. But these experiences bonded these two men, and Senior is a man who was a bit of a mystery. His films were often mysteries, if you've ever seen any of them. His process was mysterious. And they get into his craziness, especially in the 60s and 70s, the cocaine, the LA nightmare when he moved out there and tried making films in LA, and how this process spun Robert Downey Jr. out for a number of years. Even after Senior got clean, Robert Downey Jr. was holding slates in LA County Prison.
Right.
Because he couldn't get clean for the longest time.
Right.
I felt like this doc was a way for a son to learn about his father, to explore him, to celebrate him. Senior is a man who cast a huge shadow even as his son eclipsed him in the film industry, obviously. And Senior, we see, is really mischievous. He never wants to follow norms. He embraces the bizarre, which again, watch any of his films. You see that he loves the bizarre and finding the craziness in regular life. And this film really opened my eyes. I'd seen 3 of Robert Downey Sr.'s films in my lifetime.
That's 3. Oh, I've seen 1.
Have you? Which one?
Up the Academy.
Oh, I've never seen that one.
Oh, it's terrible.
I saw Putney Swope.
I'd like to see that.
That was good.
That's his most famous film. I would
Yeah, another one that came directly after that, which I'm totally blanking on. And then Hugo Pool, that starred Alyssa Milano.
Yeah.
And I'd never realized how deeply personal that movie was until they talk about it in here, that was basically his life.
Yeah.
And that made me look at what I thought was a really horrible movie a little differently. I thought this was a really beautiful end-of-life tribute to a man. It got me a little choked up in the end. It caught me a little emotional. I really enjoyed this.
You're getting choked up right now, I can tell.
I am. I'm getting a little misty thinking about it. But I enjoyed it. I thought Robert Downey Jr., it's a really loving tribute to a father who some people don't even know that there was a senior.
That's true.
You know? I don't know. How did you find this documentary? Did it do anything for you?
Yeah, well, this movie, when we get together for these little fun time, happy hour, half-hour movie shows like this, I try not to find out too much information about the movies I'm going to watch. So when you said, okay, we're going to watch this movie about Robert Downey Sr., I sat down to watch it, and there was so much at the beginning of Robert Downey Jr. playing with his kids, and I was like, what the F is this? I want to learn about this other guy. So I was irritated at the beginning, and then slowly I came to realize that this was not going to be like a standard documentary where we just kind of go through clips of Robert Downey Sr.'s movies. Yeah. And this movie really sucked me in. I really really enjoyed the conversations, the quiet conversations between these two men, whether they were on the phone or in the same room together. And I just found it really touching. I found their relationship to be really touching, and it really, I got a new respect for Robert Downey Jr. after watching this movie.
I felt the same way.
I mean, I love the Iron Man movies as much as anybody, or maybe not, but I still like those movies. But this really was, a much more interesting look into this person.
And there's some moments towards the end where you can kind of see his heart break as he realizes this is the end of his father's life.
Right.
It's late in his life. He's suffering from Parkinson's. And there's moments in here where my heart broke for him as he started to kind of realize that this might be the last time I see my dad. There's moments in there where he's asking his dad personal, like, is there anything you've ever wanted to tell me?
Yeah.
And he's not getting an answer that I think he wanted. It was hard. It was a kind of emotional roller coaster in this movie. I really dug that. Yeah, it wasn't just talking heads talking about Robert Downey Sr. You know?
Well, I mean, I think that he decided he wanted to learn more about his father, and then and movies were always a part of their lives.
Right, that's
obviously.
how they spoke to each other,
and so that's how they are gonna complete this journey. Is they're gonna do this documentary, and he's got his own film crew, and he's off doing his thing, which I found really
that was
interesting.
Great.
And
he's still editing to the end.
But then as they get into this project, that sort of breaks down a little bit, and there is more of just the conversations and
Junior passing along things to his son.
Right, we see the 3 generations.
Yeah,
and
that was really great.
You see Junior making sure that his son knows his grandfather.
Yeah,
which I don't think a lot of families necessarily do.
Right.
So I thought that was really, really touching as well. I just really. Yeah, I got misty several times in this movie. I could have done without the Sean Hayes bit. I didn't need that.
Okay, yeah, but there was a request of his dad. You got to have this song, and so Sean Hayes came in to be the pianist for it, the accompanist. Yeah.
But I mean, this movie made me want to see some of his movies that I hadn't seen.
Yeah.
Even Too Much Sun, which they showed at the end. I've heard interesting things about that. I don't think it's necessarily a good movie.
Several of them are on
movie.
Peacock right now.
Oh, they are?
I looked and saw that several of his films are on Peacock.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And just, and there's a point in this movie where his health, senior's health, is obviously taking a turn for the worse. And that's kind of heartbreaking, because even at the beginning of the film, he's older, obviously, but he still seems to kind of be with it.
He's still got it.
And his Parkinson's gets worse, and it's heartbreaking, as you said. But I really admire Robert Downey Jr. for making this movie.
Absolutely. All right, what did you end up giving Senior?
I gave it 4 stars.
Yeah, I did as well. It's really good. Even if you aren't a fan of Robert Downey Jr. per se, or haven't even heard of Robert Downey Sr., it's worth it. It's a father and son project.
It's a father and son story.
It's an homage to someone you love, and it's really well done. So go check it out over on Netflix. The last movie we have, sir, is a film that you saw that I did not. You've got a solo review. No pressure.
I've never done a solo review before.
The eyes of the world are watching
I'm
you.
excited about it.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about a movie over there on the Hulu called Darby and the Dead. Darby and the Dead is a supernatural comedy film directed by Silas Howard and starring Rayleigh Downs as Darby. And here's the name I'm going to screw up, homage to Mike Roth. Louiel Clervallo?
Nailed it. Roth would be so proud of you.
She's actually best known as the voice of Disney's Moana.
Okay.
See, it all comes back to Disney.
Nice job.
Everything comes back to Disney. She plays the dead of the title. Clairville specifically plays Capri Donahue, your typical mean high school girl who one day gets sadly electrocuted in the girls' locker room, kind of a freak accident. She dies, but here's the hitch. Sort of.
Oh no.
You see in this movie,
she's only mostly dead?
She's only mostly dead. People in this movie, Jamison, don't necessarily die. They hang around until they've settled their scores here on Earth, and then they're ready to pass on to the afterlife.
Sure.
Darby, we see right there. She's a social outcast at school, but she has a special power to see and communicate with the dead. So her and Capri form an unsteady partnership to throw what would have been Capri's 17th birthday party. After witnessing the party, Capri says she'll be able to then pass on to the afterlife. Now, in exchange for throwing the party, Capri grooms Darby to be one of the most, if not the most popular girl at school. But then Darby gets so caught up in her newfound popularity that she begins to ignore her deados, as she calls them, whom she meets every Friday night in a group therapy session. Session of dead people.
Good, work it out.
Among her dead friends are Tony Danza as a widower, who is...
what a dream.
That got your interest.
Oh, Angela.
Danza plays a widower who's purposefully staying kind of in a purgatory state until his wife dies so they can pass on together. Mm-hmm. And also in this group of deados is the great Wayne Knight, better known as Newman. Yeah. Newman. So will Darby find her true self again, or will she remain shallow and superficial? Will she find true love? Will Capri pass on? Will Tony Danza pass on?
Oh, no.
Will I pass out from boredom watching this film? Actually, Darby and the Dead isn't too bad. The lead actors are enjoyable enough. The movie's got a great soundtrack. And it is fun to see Tony Danza and Wayne Knight together riffing on how good life used to be when they were alive. And, much like Senior, but maybe not as much, I found the ending to be surprisingly touching.
Oh, didn't see that coming.
No, it was it was a nice ending. Darby and the Dead is not too much more than your supersized Saved by the Bell episode, but there are worse ways that you could spend your time. I think I gave it 2.5 stars.
Look out. Is Tony's name Tony in this? You following the great tradition?
It's Gary, I think.
I can't accept that. Come on. It's too late.
It's fun to see Tony Danza. I mean,
it is great to see Tony. Did he tap dance?
He did not. No,
Who is this guy?
But he was he was your wise old sage, kind of like a Pat Morita.
Oh, all right. Well, hey, that's great though. You 2.5. That's neither good nor bad. That's good.
It's not great, but
yeah.
it's I've seen a lot worse.
Well, I appreciate you watching that and commend you on your solo review.
How did I do?
You might have just set Real Reviews history today.
Oh, I'm very thrilled.
Drop the balloons.
I'm very excited.
The balloons aren't up there. All right.
Did I mention it's on the Hulu?
It's over on Hulu, so there you go. Your recommendations for this week. Take them as you will. Next week, actually not next week, in 2 weeks, we got some fun movies. The weekend of December 16th. Our coming soons are really interesting. In theaters, we have a film that's expected to do gangbusters. It is Avatar: The Way of Water, this long-awaited sequel to the 2009 mega hit film that set all the records and had people wanting to live in Pandora forever and all that. We finally get James Cameron's sequel to it. It's going to be out in 3D, of course. Big time stuff at the movie theaters, and so of course that's the only movie playing in the theaters that weekend. Over on
Cocaine Bear's not going to go up against.
Not yet.
Avatar?
No. I wish it would. Over on Netflix, we have a film called Bardo: False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths. It is a mouthful. It is from director Alejandro Iñárritu, who
nicely done.
Recently won back-to-back Oscars for Best Director. It's his new dramedy of a documentarian going on an epic journey to reconcile his Mexican identity. Feels like a very personal film for Mexico's greatest director. We also have over on Hulu a film called I Love My Dad. Stars Patton Oswalt as a father who catfishes his son in an attempt to reconnect with him.
Wow.
Yeah, sounds interesting. So those are the films of December 16th. We are hurtling into the end of the year, which is when they usually drop a ton of movies. So stay tuned at the box office. We also, speaking of box office, want to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters, the Palace here in Sun Prairie. Thank you for sponsoring this program. Thank you for providing a dream lounger for me to sit in to watch Santa Claus swing a sledgehammer, bears to do cocaine, and people to surf in the water, I guess. I don't know.
Too many previews. Come on. How many previews should there be before a movie?
No more than 4.
Okay.
I'm happy at that.
Okay.
Not 12.
There was a lot before Violent Night.
There was a lot.
I was all, yeah. It was
There
past
was
my bedtime.
A lot, yeah. But
Okay.
that's how they get you in there.
Oh, that's
right?
how they start. Cocaine Bear, I can't wait.
I usually don't. My popcorn doesn't make it through the previews.
Well, no,
and
of
that's
course
a problem.
not. Yeah.
I guess it's a big
I don't think it makes it out of your beard.
There's a lot of that too. There's definitely a lot of that. All right, next week I'm going to be talking about movies such as, spoiler alert, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, perhaps Will Smith's new movie Emancipation.
Why perhaps?
We'll see.
Okay.
There's reasons.
Okay.
And I am going to be joined by an old friend. Our old buddy Mike Roth is going to rejoin
he spoiled
us. Oh yeah, you got to tune in, man. You got to let people know. Tune in. It's episode 450. Mike Roth is going to be back, kids. Tune in. It's going to be a good time. So until then,
He's got big shoes to fill after my solo.
he does. I
review
don't
there.
think he can do it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
Jeff Robbins, thank you for joining me once again.
Always a pleasure.
I always enjoy having you on. Perhaps in the start of the new year, we'll have you on again. I don't know.
Ooh.
Do you have anything you need to plug before we get out of here?
No, I've got nothing to plug. I got nowhere to be.
Very good. Very good. Well, until...
Check out my Amazon wish list.
Oh, there you go. You don't want to see what's on there. Until next week, though, I'm Jamison.
I'm Jeff.
There it is. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
See you next week.
Happy